Welcome back to Inside the Philippines. Tonight's story comes from a 51-year-old electrician out of Ottawa, a man who spent 30 years building a business with his own two hands before a bad investment nearly wiped him out. He came to Manila looking for something simpler. What he found instead is the kind of story that sneaks up on you. Not a scam with a neon sign on it, just a slow, reasonable-sounding series of yeses. He'll tell you himself. Nobody made him do anything. That's what makes this one stick with you. Here's his story, in his own words. My name's Gord Halloran, 51 years old, 30 years running my own electrical contracting outfit out of a town about 40 minutes from Ottawa. Place you've never heard of, and I'm not going to bother naming it. Married to the job, is what my sister used to say. Never married to a person. There was a girl, back in my 30s, but that's a different story, and not really the point. Point is, I built something. Started with one van and a ladder rack. Ended up with 11 guys on payroll and a waiting list 6 weeks long for residential work. I was good at it. I want to say that plainly because it matters later. I was good at my job. I could look at a panel that 3 other guys had given up on and find the fault in 20 minutes. Measure twice, cut once. That's not just a saying to guys like me. That's how you don't burn a house down. Sold the business 4 years ago. Fella from 2 towns over bought it. Decent price. And I walked away with $380,000 Canadian sitting in an investment account. Figured that was it. Figured I'd done the hard part. And then Ron happens. Ron's a guy I golfed with. Nice enough. Talked a big game about diversifying, about how sitting in GICs was dying slowly. His words. Got me into some cryptocurrency mining operation. I won't even pretend I understood it. Something about servers. Something about, I don't know, mining coins that don't exist anywhere except on a screen. I nodded along like I understood. That's the part that still gets me. 30 years I wouldn't let an apprentice touch a live wire without knowing exactly what he was doing. And here I am, handing over money to something I couldn't have explained to you if you held a gun to my head. 18 months. That's how long it took. Watched the number on that dashboard climb for the first few months, then plateau, then start doing this thing where it would drop a little, and I'd tell myself it was normal. Markets do that. And then one day I logged in, and the whole platform was just gone. Not the money. The platform. Website wouldn't load. Ron stopped answering his phone the way people do when they know exactly what they've done. I'm not going to sit here and tell you exactly what I lost, because it's embarrassing, and also because it doesn't matter for what I'm telling you. What matters is it was most of it. Most of 30 years of work, gone into a server farm I never saw, run by people I never met, because a guy I played golf with twice a month told me it was smart. So, there's that. I kept enough. That's the thing people don't believe when I tell this story. I kept enough to still be, by any normal person's math, a comfortable man. But comfortable's a different animal than secure. And when you've had secure and you lose it, comfortable feels like standing on a floor you're not sure is going to hold your weight. I sat with that for about 4 months. Didn't leave the house much. My sister called every Sunday, which I appreciated and also sort of dreaded, because she'd ask how I was doing. And I'd say fine, and we both knew that wasn't true. Somewhere in there, I started watching a lot of YouTube. Started with retirement stuff, Portugal, Mexico, that sort of thing. And then I fell into this rabbit hole of guys talking about Thailand. Beaches, cheap living, all that. Watched probably 40 of these videos over a couple weeks. And then, I don't even remember exactly how it happened, one video led to another, I ended up on a channel about the Philippines instead. And the thing that got me, the thing that actually made me sit up, was some guy saying, offhand, that the Philippines was the English-speaking one. Didn't have to learn Thai. Didn't have to learn a new alphabet. Didn't have to point at menus. I know that sounds like a small thing. It wasn't small to me. I was 50 years old, tired, humiliated by my own bad judgment, and the idea of not having to relearn how to order food felt like the difference between drowning and not drowning. I want to be honest with you. I wasn't looking for love. I know that's usually how these stories start. Some guy already dreaming about a girlfriend before he's even landed. That wasn't me. I was looking for someplace warm, someplace cheap enough that what I had left could actually last, and someplace I could rebuild some kind of routine. That's it. That was the whole plan. I read forums for 2 months before I did anything. I want that on the record, too, because you're going to hear plenty of stories on this channel about fellas who flew over on a whim and got taken apart in 3 weeks. That wasn't going to be me. I read every horror story I could find. Guys losing their pensions to women they met online. Guys getting talked into land deals that fell apart the second they left the country. I read all of it, and I told myself, good, now I know what to watch for. Funny thing about knowing what to watch for. Doesn't mean a thing if the version that gets you doesn't look like what you were watching for at all. But I'm ahead of myself. I hadn't even booked the flight yet. That came a few weeks later, and that's really where this whole thing starts. Not with a woman, not yet. Just a 51-year-old guy with a suitcase and a tourist visa, telling himself the worst was already behind him. Took me about 3 weeks to actually book the flight. Want to be clear about that, because I think people assume a guy in my situation just panics and gets on a plane. Wasn't like that. I made a spreadsheet. Actual spreadsheet. Columns for cost of living. Columns for flight time from Toronto. Columns for whether I'd be able to find decent internet. Because I still did the odd consulting call for guys back home who bought panels off me and needed advice. English was the column that decided it, though. I kept coming back to that. Thailand, I'd need to learn some Thai eventually, or at least be the guy who can't read his own restaurant bill for the rest of his life. Philippines, I read, 90% of signage is in English. Government forms are in English, and half the country's basically been dealing with North Americans one way or another for 100 years. Made the whole thing feel less like jumping off a cliff. Picked Manila over the islands on purpose. Everybody told me, go to Palawan, go to Boracay, sit on a beach the rest of your life. And I thought about that. I did. But I know myself. I'm not a beach guy long term. I'm a guy who needs a gym, needs somewhere to walk to, needs a bit of noise around him, or he starts thinking too much. Manila, at least, was going to keep me busy, just trying to survive the traffic. Landed at Inea on a tourist visa, 30 days. Figured I'd extend it once I knew I could stand the place. Found a 1-bedroom condo in Makati. Through a listing site, decent building. Had a pool I never used, and a gym I used constantly. Rent was around 28,000 pesos a month, call it 500 Canadian, which back home wouldn't get you a parking spot in some cities. First month, I did nothing. And I mean that as a point of pride, considering everything I'd just read on the forums. Guys getting fleeced in week 1, guys marrying somebody by month 2. I went to the gym every morning. Walked around BGC in the evenings when the heat backed off a bit, watched the lights come on over Bonifacio High Street, ate at the same Mang Inasal 3 times a week because I liked their chicken, and I liked that the girl at the counter remembered my order. Small thing. Mattered to me. Heat took some getting used to. Nobody tells you the humidity's a physical weight until you're standing at a jeepney stop at 10 in the morning already soaked through your shirt. Diesel smell everywhere, and under that, this smell of grilled meat and garbage and rain that never quite goes away even when it's not raining. Took me 2 weeks to stop hating it. Never fully stopped noticing it. I was proud of myself, is the honest truth. Proud I hadn't done anything stupid. Told my sister on our Sunday call, I'm just going to take my time here. Deb, no rush, no girlfriend, nothing. She said good, and I could hear in her voice she didn't fully believe I'd hold to it. Neither did I, if I'm honest. But I meant it when I said it. Thing is, a month of gym and manginasal and walking around by yourself, it wears on you different than it wears on you back home. Back home, alone doesn't feel like alone? Not really. You've got the hardware store. You've got Ron. God help me. You've got 30 years of routine holding you up even if the people in it aren't close. Over there, I didn't have any of that. Just me and a condo and a balcony looking at another building's air conditioning units. So I started going to SM Aura more than I probably needed to. Not for anything. Just to be around people. Watched families doing their Sunday shopping. Whole extended clans moving as one unit through the mall. Titas and Lolas and kids all at once. And something about that got to me. I'd sit at the food court with a choking value meal I didn't really want and just watch. That's where I met Angel. Not at Aura, actually. There was a little phone repair kiosk in the mall near my condo. Screen cracked on my phone from when I dropped it getting out of a grab, and I went in to get it fixed. She was behind the counter, maybe late 20s, ponytail, name tag, said Angel, and she looked at my phone and said, "Ay, sir, ang sakit naman nito, parang na-shooting," which she then translated for me, laughing, saying it looked like it had been shot. I tried to say salamat back to her and butchered it completely, and she laughed again, not mean, just genuinely amused, and corrected my pronunciation. Came back 3 days later to pick up the phone and ended up standing there talking to her for 20 minutes while a line built up behind me. Asked her to lunch. She said yes, but actually insisted, on paying for her own halo after. I noticed that. I want to be honest about how much I noticed that, because I'd read every one of those forum threads, the ones that tell you count your fingers after she counts your money, and here's a woman refusing to let me pay 80 pesos for a dessert. Felt like proof of something. Felt, God help me, like I'd found the exception. Things moved along easy enough after that first lunch. Nothing dramatic. We'd meet up after her shift, walk around the mall. Sometimes she'd drag me into Watson's because she needed something for her mother. And I'd just stand there while she compared 2 bottles of the same thing for 5 minutes. Normal stuff. Boring even, in a way I found I liked. 30 years running a business, you don't get a lot of boring. Boring, to me, at 51, felt like a luxury. Week 2, maybe going into week 3, she introduced me to her tita. Her mom's older sister lived a few tricycle rides away in a barangay I couldn't have found again on my own. Small house, tin roof, the kind of place where you can hear the neighbors' karaoke through the walls whether you want to or not. Somebody was murdering my way 2 houses down the whole time we sat there. Tita made me merienda, some kind of rice cake I didn't catch the name of, and kept asking me questions in this mix of English and Tagalog that Angel translated half of and let the other half go, I think on purpose, so I'd relax instead of feeling interrogated. I remember sitting there thinking, this is what it's supposed to look like. Not a bar, not a dating app, not some girl messaging me from an account with 11 photos and no friends tagged in any of them. An actual aunt, an actual house, an actual family, sizing me up the way any family would size up a guy dating their niece. Made me feel like I'd done something right, finally, after Ron and the crypto business and 18 months of being an idiot with a mouse and a keyboard. She took me to Mass that Sunday. Only the once, she never pushed it after, but I remember it clear. Some parish church in Makati, hot as anything even with the fans going, and I stood there in my one-collared shirt, not understanding half the Tagalog in the homily, and Angel next to me actually singing, actually meaning it, not performing for my benefit. That's the part that got me. Nobody performs boredom. She looked bored during some of it, honestly, checking her phone once, and somehow that made it feel more real, not less. This wasn't a show she was putting on for the Kano. I'll be straight with you. I'm not a church-going man. Haven't been since my mother's funeral. But I sat in that pew and thought, if a woman's whole family runs on this kind of thing, Mass on Sunday, aunt looking out for the niece, rice cakes for strangers her niece brings around, then maybe I've landed somewhere with an actual floor under it. Compare that to Ron's dashboard with numbers that used to be real money. First money thing came about a week after Mass. Angel's mother has diabetes, needs insulin and some other medication regular, and 1 week the numbers didn't work out. Some mix-up with her father's construction pay coming in late. Angel didn't ask me straight out. That's the thing I want you to understand, because when I tell people this part, they assume she came at me with her hand open. She didn't. She mentioned it, sort of sideways, telling me about her week, and I asked how much, and she said 15,000 pesos. And I did the math in my head, call it 270 Canadian, and I thought, that's dinner and drinks for 4 back home. That's nothing. Sent it through G-Cash that night. Didn't think twice, and I want to be honest with you now, sitting here telling you this. I still don't think that specific 15,000 pesos was wrong. Man's mother needs her medication. You're in a position to help. You help. That's not culture. That's not a scam. That's just being a decent person. I stand by that one. What I didn't clock, and this is the part one think about now, is how good it felt. Not the money leaving my account, the feeling right after. Angel thanking me, quiet about it. No big performance, just, thank you, Gord. My mom is really grateful. Made me feel like a man who fixes things again. Like I was back in the van with the ladder rack, showing up, solving somebody's problem, instead of some retired guy who got taken for a ride by his own golf buddy. I went to bed that night thinking I'd found something real. Genuinely thinking that. 51 years old, feeling like a teenager who'd finally gotten it right, and not one part of me stopped to ask what 15,000 pesos was going to look like once it had 6 or 7 friends. After the medication thing, it was like a door had opened somewhere, and I hadn't noticed I'd been the one holding it. Not all at once. I want to be fair about this part, because it didn't feel like anything was happening, and that's exactly the problem with it. Angel's brother, Miko, was going into his 3rd year at a college out in Cavite, business management, and around the 2-month mark she mentioned, kind of offhand while we were eating at a Jollibee near her place, that the school was threatening to drop him for the semester over unpaid balance. 80,000 pesos. I did the math walking to the counter for more Coke, around 14.50 Canadian. And I remember thinking, that's a fridge back home. That's a decent fridge. Not nothing, but not the kind of number that keeps you up at night when you've still got, at that point, a couple 100,000 sitting untouched. She didn't ask me directly for that one either. Told me the story, went quiet, and I was the one who said, how much? How much do you need? I think about that a fair bit now. Whether that matters, her not asking. Probably doesn't, in the end. Money left my account either way. But it mattered to me at the time. Felt like a difference between being asked and being trusted with something. Sent it. Miko texted me himself after. Thank you, Kuya Gord. First time anybody'd called me that. Kuya, like an older brother. And I won't lie to you. That landed somewhere soft in me. I hadn't been anybody's anything in a long time. Not a husband, no kids, employees who called me boss, and meant it fine, but nothing like family. Around then, I started getting folded into things properly. Sunday lunches out at different relatives' places, a cousin's birthday party, in a covered basketball court with a sound system blasting OPM, and this one uncle who kept pouring me Red Horse and calling me Sir Gord, even after I told him 3 times, just Gord's fine. Somebody's baptism I went to, stood at the back, didn't understand the ceremony, but understood the food after. A whole lechon on a table. Everybody eating with their hands half the time and nobody thinking twice about it. I started thinking long term. That's the honest truth of it. 51, single, a business behind me, and no real reason to go back to Ontario except my sister and a golf course full of guys like Ron. I started thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe I marry this woman, build a life out here, and this whole family becomes my family. That's around when the house came up. Angel's parents had a place out in Bulacan, half-built for years the way a lot of these provincial houses are. Second floor, just rebar sticking up out of concrete, waiting for money that never quite arrives all at once. Angel said, if we could just finish it, roof, walls upstairs, proper flooring, her parents could retire out of the city, and there'd be a place for us too, eventually, if things went that way between us. By month 5, I'd sent 250,000 pesos toward that house. 4,500 Canadian, give or take. And I want you to understand, I didn't just wire that in one shot. It went out in 3 payments. Cement here, rebar there, labor for the guys doing the second floor. Felt responsible, actually, tracking it that way. Felt like a project. I'm a tradesman. Projects are something I know how to trust. Except the photos never quite lined up. She'd send me pictures of the build, and I'd notice, this one time, the same pile of hollow blocks sitting in the same spot, 3 weeks apart. Told myself, rain probably held them up. Contractors are contractors everywhere. Ontario or Bulacan, doesn't matter. And then, at that birthday party, one of her cousins, older guy, half a San Miguel in him, said something to me in English on purpose, I think. Said, that house? Good thing your name's not on the papers? Huh? Laughing like it was nothing. I laughed along with him. Didn't ask what he meant. Should have asked. Didn't. That comment from the cousin sat with me longer than I let on at the time. Didn't say anything to Angel about it that night. Told myself it was just a guy who'd had too much Red Horse running his mouth. And honestly, that's probably half true. But it planted something. Small thing. A splinter you don't dig out right away because it doesn't hurt enough yet. By month 6, 7, we were talking marriage in the loose way people talk about it before anybody's actually said the word out loud. Where we'd live, whether I'd try to get some kind of visa sorted that didn't mean flying out every few months to reset the tourist stamp. I'd started reading up on the 13AA, the marriage visa, and also reading, with a kind of sick fascination, if I'm honest, about how there's no divorce in this country, only annulment, and that runs into the hundreds of thousands of pesos and takes years. I remember thinking, well, that's not a problem for us. We're not there yet. And also thinking, that's exactly the kind of detail I'd have flagged for a client 30 years ago. Read the fine print before you sign anything. I just wasn't reading it as fine print. I was reading it as trivia. Month 8 is when the store came up. Angel had been talking for a while about wanting something of her own, not working the phone kiosk her whole life. And there was a little space going near her mother's place. Empty storefront that used to be a bakery. Good foot traffic, she said, right on the corner where the tricycles line up. Sorry store, she called it, but bigger than the usual, more like a mini grocery. Rice, canned goods, load for phones, maybe a fridge for cold drinks and eggs. The kind of place that does steady business because people need a liter of Coke or a can of corned beef at 9 at night and don't want to go all the way to the Pure Gold. I liked the idea. I won't pretend I didn't. Felt like something real. Not a hole in the ground with rebar sticking out of it. An actual business with actual customers. And I know business. 30 years of it. Told myself I could even help with the setup. The wiring for the fridge and the freezer. Do it properly instead of some cousin running an extension cord across the floor. Here's the part one want you to sit with, because it's the part that still bothers me most. Foreigners can't own a business like that outright, not easily, not without a whole corporate structure I didn't have the patience or, frankly, the trust left in myself to set up. So it went under Angel's name. Permit, lease, everything. My money, her name. I told myself that's just how it's done here. And it is. That part's true. Plenty of foreign guys structure it exactly that way, and it works out fine. But I want to be honest with you now, telling this. Somewhere in me, I knew that was the moment I stopped measuring twice. I was cutting first and hoping the tape was right. Costs came in waves after that, and every single one of them felt small on its own. Refrigeration unit, second-hand but still needed rewiring, that was mine to sort, and I actually enjoyed doing it. First time in 2 years, I'd had a screwdriver in my hand for something that mattered. Ceiling fan because the space had no airflow, and stock spoils fast in that heat. Shelving, a proper roof patch because the old bakery roof leaked in one corner. Each one, 20, 30, 40,000 pesos. 800 Canadian a pop. I stopped adding them up in my head around that point, which I recognize now as exactly the wrong moment to stop adding. I remember doing the math once, late at night, just roughly. Everything since the medication money, the tuition, the house, the store setup, and coming to something over 500,000 pesos total. Call it 9,000 Canadian. And you know what I thought? I thought, that's nothing next to what Ron's crypto garbage took me for. That's rounding error. That was the whole problem right there. I was measuring this against my worst mistake, instead of measuring it against what made sense on its own. The store still wasn't open by the end of month 8. Kept needing one more thing. I didn't clock that as strange yet. Construction runs late everywhere, I told myself. Doesn't matter if it's a subdivision in Ottawa or a corner store in Bulacan. What I did clock, and couldn't quite shake, was a night Angel got a call from her mother about something at the house, stepped outside the condo to take it, and came back with her face different. Tighter. Wouldn't tell me what it was about. Said it was nothing, family stuff. Don't worry about it. That's the first time I remember actually worrying about it. I started keeping a ledger about a week after that. Not a spreadsheet this time, just a notebook, actual pen and paper, because something in me didn't trust putting it on a device Angel sometimes borrowed to check Facebook. Every transfer, every Gcash send, date and amount, going all the way back to the 15,000 for the insulin. Felt strange doing it. Felt like I was doing something to her. Almost. Cataloging her like she was a supplier I didn't trust anymore. But I'd spent 30 years tracing faults in systems nobody else could figure out. And something in the back of my head had started humming the way it used to hum right before I found the short. Total came to just over 800,000 pesos by the time I sat with it properly. Little over 14,000 Canadian. Said out loud like that, sitting alone in the condo with the aircon rattling and a plate of cold sisig I hadn't touched, it didn't sound like rounding error anymore. It sounded like a down payment on a house back in Ontario. What really got me moving was the Bulacan property. I asked Angel, casual as I could manage, if I could see the title papers sometime. Told her I was just curious how it worked here. Foreigner's brain wanting to understand the paperwork. She said, sure, no problem. Her father would show me next time we went out. Weeks went by, kept getting pushed. Her dad's busy. Her dad's at the barangay office. Her dad misplaced a copy. I've heard enough excuses from subcontractors in my life to know what a stalled answer sounds like, even when it's dressed up nice. Eventually, I did what I probably should have done back at that basketball court party. Went out to Bulacan on my own one Tuesday, told Angel I had errands in the area, which wasn't even a lie exactly, and asked at the barangay hall about the property records, the way you can there, public enough if you know to ask, and you're polite about it. Clerk pulled up what she could. The title on that lot, the house I'd sent 250,000 pesos toward finishing, wasn't in Angel's parents' name at all. Wasn't in anybody's name I recognized. Some man, older, a relative on her father's side by the surname, still holding the deed. I stood in that barangay hall with a ceiling fan going nowhere near fast enough and just felt stupid. Not betrayed yet, just stupid. Like I'd wired money into a fridge that was never plugged into anything. Went home and pulled the store paperwork too, the lease Angel had signed. Found, going back through old messages, a mention from months earlier I'd half-registered and let go. A cousin, not the drunk one from the party, a different one, saying something about how the landlord wanted the deposit redone because of some dispute over who actually held the lease before Angel took it. I hadn't asked what that meant either. There's a pattern there if you're willing to see it. I wasn't. Not yet. Not fully. I confronted her that Thursday. Not a screaming match. I'm not built for that. And honestly, neither is she. We sat at the little table in my condo, and I put the notebook down between us, all of it, dates and pesos, and I asked her straight, whose name is actually on that land? She didn't lie to me. I want to say that plainly because it's the part of this story that doesn't fit the shape people expect. She didn't deny it, didn't play confused, didn't do the thing you read about on the forums where the girl gets angry and turns it around on you. She just went quiet for a long time, looking at her hands, and then she said the land had always been complicated, that her father owed a debt to that relative from years back, a hospital bill for her grandmother, and the arrangement was the family would repay it slowly, and eventually the land would come to them properly. She said she believed that when she told me it, and I think she did. I really do. What she admitted, and this is the part that actually broke something in me, was that some of what I'd sent for the house hadn't gone to the house at all. Gone toward that old debt instead, toward keeping the peace with that relative, toward her father's side of things that had nothing to do with rebar or roofing. She said she was sorry, and she was crying by then. Not the performance kind. The quiet kind where someone's trying not to and failing. Said utang na loob doesn't stop just because Akano's paying attention to a specific line item. Said her family's needs don't sit still and wait for me to finish one project before another one shows up. I asked about the store. She said the same, more or less. Some of it went where I thought it went. Some of it went to her brother's tuition, Again, a second time, because the first payment hadn't actually covered the full balance the way she'd told me. Some of it just went to keeping everyone afloat, month to month, the ordinary grinding cost of a family with more mouths than income, and I'd become, without either of us calling it that out loud, the fridge that never ran dry. I sat there, and I didn't yell. Genuinely didn't have it in me. What I felt was closer to standing over an open panel and realizing the fault isn't one bad wire, it's the whole system, wired wrong from the start by somebody who meant well and just didn't know any better, or knew and didn't have a choice. I couldn't tell you, even now, how much of it was Angel managing me, and how much was Angel drowning and grabbing whatever was closest, which happened to be me. She didn't beg me to stay. I want to be fair about that too. She said she understood if I needed to go, said sorry again, and meant it, I think. The same way you can mean sorry and still not be able to undo a single thing you did. I told her I needed a few days, went back to the condo alone, sat on that balcony looking at the same air conditioning units I'd been staring at since month 1, and did the math one more time. All the way through. 800,000 pesos and change. Just under 15,000 Canadian, on top of what Ron had already taken. Not the number that broke me. It was realizing I'd have handed over the same amount again, easy, if she'd asked one more time before that Tuesday in Bulacan. I gave it 4 days before I said anything more to Angel. Wasn't punishing her exactly. I just needed to sit with it the way I'd sit with a job that turned out worse than the estimate. You don't fix that kind of thing angry. You fix it clear-headed, or you don't fix it at all. We didn't have some big final scene. Want to tell you that plainly, because I know that's what people expect. The screaming, the packed bags thrown out a window, all that. Wasn't like that. We met one more time at the Mang Inasal near my condo, the same one from month 1, which I didn't plan and only noticed halfway through the chicken. I told her I was going home. Not forever, maybe, I said, but for now. She nodded. Didn't cry that time. I think she'd already done her crying the Thursday before. She said she was sorry again, and I believed her. And I also knew believing her didn't undo 1 peso of it. Both things were true. I've thought about that a lot since. How you can believe somebody and still know it doesn't matter, not for the money, not for what's already spent. The store never did open. Last I heard, Angel gave the lease back to the landlord, ate the deposit, went back to fixing phones. Miko finished his degree, for what it's worth. And I don't regret that 80,000 pesos. Not really. Not even now. The house in Bulacan? I don't know what happened with it. Didn't ask. Some things you just let go of clean rather than pull on the thread forever. I flew back to Ottawa about 6 weeks after that conversation at the Mang Inasal. Landed in February, which if you've never had the pleasure, is exactly as miserable as you'd expect, coming out of 32 degrees and humidity into -15 with a wind that gets under every zipper you own. My sister picked me up from the airport. Didn't say I told you so. Just hugged me too long in the parking garage and let me talk about it on the drive, which I did, more than I expected to. Total damage, all told, between what I'd sent for the medication, the tuition, the house, and the store. Just over 800,000 pesos. Call it 15,000 Canadian. On top of what Ron and his crypto nonsense had already taken. Not the number that wrecks a man. I want to be honest about that. Sitting here telling you this, I'm still, by any fair measure, a comfortable guy. I've got a roof. I've got some savings left. I've got work if I want it. What got wrecked wasn't the bank account. It was the part of me that trusted my own read on a situation. I do some part-time inspection work now, contract stuff, checking other guys' panels, other guys' wiring. Funny thing, doing that job again after all this. You go into a house, you look at what's behind the wall, and you can tell right away whether somebody did it properly or whether they just made it look finished. Angel's family, her whole situation. I don't think it was ever a wall built to fool me on purpose. I think it was more like a house built by people patching one leak at a time their whole lives, never quite catching up. And I walked in offering to pay for the roof without asking who else was already living under it. I don't hate her. I want that on the record. I've read enough of these stories online since I've been back to know that's not what people expect to hear, and I get why. But hating her would mean pretending she never sat with me in that pew, never let me pay for exactly nothing that first month, never cried actual tears at that table over her own family's mess. Some of it was real. Some of it cost me money I'll never see again. Both things sit in the same story, and I've stopped trying to pick one over the other. If there's a lesson in it, and I've had a lot of time on my back porch this winter to think about what it is, it's this. Measure twice, cut once. That's not just about wire. It's about anything you're building with somebody else's hands in it, too. I stopped measuring the day I decided the numbers were small enough not to matter. They were never the ones that mattered. It was the habit of checking that I let go of, one reasonable ask at a time. And that's Gord's story. What strikes me most about it, listening to him tell it, is that there's no single villain here, and honestly, no single victim either. A family doing what families in the Philippines have done for generations, holding each other up however they can. A man doing what a lot of us would do, wanting to matter to somebody again, after life had made him feel like he didn't. Somewhere between those two things, 800,000 pesos went into a house and a store that never became what either of them were supposed to be. If you're watching this and you recognize any part of yourself in Gord's story, we'd genuinely like to hear it in the comments. And if you're heading over there yourself, chasing something you can't quite name yet, just remember what Gord told us. Check the fine print, even when it feels like trivia. Thanks for spending this time with us. This has been Inside the Philippines. We'll see you in the next one.